I uncovered my husband and sister's affair on my son's secret phone. Mom's nothing but the money machine. My husband messaged her. My kids erased the security footage for them. So I emptied the accounts, sold our house, and vanished, leaving proof for the entire town to see. Can you imagine the earth crumbling beneath your feet, not in a sudden earthquake, but in a slow, insidious tremor that eventually rips your whole world apart? That's what happened to me, Carol, and in just a few hours, my husband is going to wake up to divorce papers on the kitchen table, right where he always leaves his coffee cup. But this isn't just about a marriage ending. It's about the total, shattering undoing of a perfect life, a life built on my ambition, my trust, and their sickening betrayal. And when the dust settles, they'll all find out exactly what happens when you push a woman too far. Right now, I'm sitting in a quiet little house 2,000 miles from what I used to call home. My husband, Robert, will find those papers, along with enough evidence to not just end our marriage, but to absolutely shatter the pristine reputation he and my own sister have so carefully crafted. My sister, Brenda, she'll wake up to discover her cushy, lucrative job as an account manager at my company no longer exists. And my kids, Garrett and Sylvia? They're about to face the harsh reality that their college funds are gone, and the easy life they've always known is over. As for me, I'll be starting over, free from every last one of them. But let me take you back to the beginning. You need to understand the whole picture. I was 38 when this all started. I'd been married for 19 years, practically a kid myself when I met Rob in college. He was charming, handsome, the life of every party. I was the quiet, ambitious one. I built my marketing and PR agency from nothing, literally from a spare bedroom with a used laptop, fueled by ramen noodles and sheer grit. Now, it's a multi-million-dollar firm with clients nationwide. While I was clocking 80-hour weeks, Rob stayed home with our two kids, Garrett, now 17, and Sylvia, 15. It was our deal. I'd build the empire. He'd manage the home front. And then there's Brenda, my younger sister. I gave her a job when no one else would. She was fresh out of a messy divorce, no real skills. I trained her, mentored her, watched her grow into a senior account manager. From the outside, we were the poster family for success. The big, custom-built house, the one I designed myself. The Sunday dinners, full of laughter, Rob telling stories, Brenda playfully complaining. Exotic family vacations, Hawaii every spring, Aspen for Christmas, all paid for by my company's success. I remember one trip to Maui. I'd just closed the biggest deal of my career, so I surprised them with first-class tickets. I saw Rob and Brenda laughing, trying to surf with the kids cheering from the beach. I took a picture of that moment, the four of them silhouetted against the sunset, looking so happy, so perfect. I thought, this is what all the hard work is for. Looking back at that photo now, I realize I was the only one not in it. I was always behind the camera, funding the shot, the architect of a life I wasn't even truly living. We were the whole package, the American dream, polished to a high shine. Then, about 2 years ago, I started noticing things. Small things. The kind you dismiss because the alternative is just too terrifying. First, Rob. He joined an exclusive tennis club, a place I knew he couldn't afford on his own. He bought expensive new workout gear, became obsessed with his diet. He wasn't just getting fit, he was preening. He started dressing differently, not sloppily, but with more effort, like he was trying to impress someone. One afternoon, I dropped by the club to surprise him, maybe hit a few balls. I found him on the patio, laughing with a group of people. When he saw me, his smile faltered for just a second. He introduced me, of course, but he seemed flustered, eager for me to leave. I chalked it up to me being an intruder in his new scene. Then Brenda started showing up more often. She dropped by after work to discuss projects, even though we'd covered everything at the office. She and Rob would sit in the kitchen, drinking my wine, laughing at inside jokes while I was upstairs trying to decompress. I'd come down for water, and their conversation would just die. "Oh, Carol, we were just talking about the Henderson account," Brenda would say, a little too quickly. I'd go through my credit card statements and see little charges that didn't quite add up. A coffee for two at a cafe across town on a Tuesday morning. Lunch near Brenda's apartment on a day Rob was supposed to be running errands. I'd ask him, and he always had a plausible excuse. Oh, yeah, I met Brenda there to give her some files she left at the house. It all made sense if you didn't let yourself think too hard about it. The kids. They started acting weird around me too. A chilliness crept in that I couldn't place. Conversations would stop the second I walked into a room. What are you guys talking about? I'd ask. Always the same answer from Garrett. Oh, nothing, Mom. A whole lot of nothing. One night, I overheard Sylvia on the phone whispering, "No, he can't talk now. She's home." My heart pounded. When she came out, I asked who she was talking to. "Just a friend from school," she said, not meeting my eye. Now, I'm not an idiot, but I'm also not a paranoid person. I'm a problem solver. I see a situation. I find a logical explanation. So I explained it all away. Rob was having a midlife crisis, wanting to feel young again. Fine. Brenda was probably having issues with her ex-husband, Walter, leaning on her brother-in-law for support. Whatever. The kids were just being teenagers, secretive, moody. I had a business to run, deadlines to meet, clients to keep happy. I didn't have time to play detective over every little oddity in my own home. That was my mistake. My biggest mistake. Not being paranoid enough. The truth came out 2 weeks ago. And it wasn't some dramatic confrontation. It was quiet, mundane, and it happened by complete accident. My son, Garrett, asked to borrow my tablet. Said he'd misplaced his. I knew I'd seen it in his room earlier, on his desk under textbooks. So I went up to grab it. His room was a mess, as usual. Clothes, books everywhere. While I was looking, I knocked over a stack of books by his bedside table. Tucked behind them, almost completely hidden, was an old iPhone. Not his current phone. An old model, one I hadn't seen in years. It was just weird. My first instinct was to put it back. Leave it alone. It was his private space. But something, a little voice in the back of my head that I'd been ignoring for 2 years, finally screamed at me. My hand trembled slightly as I pressed the power button. It lit up. It still had a charge. And it was unlocked. For a second, I just stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I could still turn back. I could put the phone down, walk away, and continue living in my comfortable, orderly illusion. But I knew I couldn't. I had to know. I opened the messaging app. What I found on that phone didn't just break my heart. It vaporized it. It took everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, my own reality, and it turned it all to dust. 2 years of messages between my husband, Rob, and my sister, Brenda. It wasn't just some sordid fling. They were in love. They were planning a future. They talked about me constantly, not with anger, but with a cold, dismissive contempt. I was an obstacle. I was the money machine funding their future together. I read messages where they mocked a dress I wore to a company dinner. I saw texts where Rob complained about having to play the doting husband when I was stressed about work. Just got to play the loving husband a little longer, till the new product line launches, one of his texts read. Then the divorce payout will be huge. We can finally get that place in Napa. Brenda's reply. Just think of the vineyard. Hold on to that thought. There were hundreds of photos. Hundreds. In my bed. On my couch. In his car. The one I bought him for his 40th birthday. There were even pictures taken in my office at work, on a weekend when I was away at a conference. The sheer arrogance of it took my breath away. They were laughing, toasting with my champagne from the office mini-fridge, sitting in my chair. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the messages with my kids. They knew. They had known for over a year. And they weren't just silent observers. They were active participants. My son, Garrett, the one I taught how to ride a bike, the one whose every scraped knee I'd bandaged. He wasn't on it. There were texts from Rob. Hey bud, Brenda's coming over. Can you make sure the driveway camera footage from 2 to 4 p.m. gets deleted? Garrett's reply. Got it, Dad. My daughter, Sylvia. My little girl. She was the alibi. Messages from Brenda to her. Hey, sweetie. If your mom asks, I was at your soccer practice until 6 o'clock, okay? And Sylvia would lie for them. I thought back to all the times I'd come home and asked where Rob was, and she'd look me right in the eye and say, "Oh, Dad was at my practice until 6 o'clock." Meanwhile, a time-stamped photo on that phone showed my husband and my sister together at a hotel at 4:03 p.m. They had a whole system. Code words. Warning signals for when I was coming home early. My own children were lookouts for their father's affair with their aunt. I sat there on my son's floor for what felt like an eternity, probably an hour. I just scrolled and scrolled. My mind went blank. I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching this woman discover the wreckage of her life. I used my own phone to take pictures of everything, every message, every photo. My hands weren't even shaking. I wasn't crying. I felt nothing. It was like I was watching a movie about someone else's tragic, pathetic life. The shock was so profound, it was like a full-body anesthetic. When I finally managed to stand up, my legs felt like they didn't belong to me. I placed the old iPhone back exactly where I found it, behind the books. I walked downstairs. The scene in my kitchen was so grotesquely normal, it felt like something out of a horror movie. My husband was at the stove, humming along to the radio, making my favorite pasta dish. My sister was at the kitchen island, sipping a glass of my Chardonnay, scrolling through her phone. My kids were at the table, pretending to do homework. A perfect family evening. "Hey, babe," Rob said, smiling at me. That easy, handsome smile that I used to love. "Dinner's almost ready." I smiled back. It felt like my face was cracking. I walked over, kissed him on the cheek. His skin was warm. I felt nothing. I grabbed a glass of wine and sat down right next to my sister. "How was work today, sis?" she asked, her voice full of fake concern. "Good," I said, my voice even. "Real good. Closed the Henderson deal." "Oh, Carol, that's amazing," she squealed, giving my arm a squeeze. Her touch felt like a spider crawling on my skin. We ate dinner together. Rob served the pasta. I watched them all eat the food I paid for in the house I paid for, living a life I paid for, while they plotted to destroy me. We talked about normal things, plans for the weekend. Garrett's graduation was just months away. Sylvia had a part in the school play. Sylvia showed me a drawing from her art class. It was a picture of our family, all of us smiling. I told her it was beautiful, and my voice didn't even break. I was looking at my daughter, my baby girl, and I didn't recognize her. She was a stranger, a co-conspirator, just a normal family dinner. Except now I knew. I knew every smile was fake. Every laugh was a lie. Every "love you, Mom" was absolute garbage. Later that night, in our bedroom, Rob initiated sex. It was the first time in months he'd shown any real interest. And I let him. I went through with it. I was numb, detached. A performer playing a role. The whole time I was just thinking about them, about him and my sister in this bed, our bed. I wondered how many times they had been in here while I was on a business trip, closing a deal to pay for their lives. When we were done, he rolled over and cuddled into me. He whispered, "I love you." I stared at the dark ceiling. "Love you too," I lied. He fell asleep a few minutes later, his head on my chest, breathing deeply. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. And I just lay there wide awake, staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. The numbness was wearing off, and something else was taking its place. Something cold and hard and sharp. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a planner, and I was about to plan the demolition of their perfect little world. A lot of people, maybe even some of you listening, would probably say I should have confronted them right then and there. Screamed, cried, thrown things. Had it out. I thought about it. I imagined myself walking downstairs with that phone, throwing it on the table and watching their faces crumble. But then what? A messy, ugly fight. Denials. Lies. Rob would have called me hysterical. Brenda would have played the victim. They would have gaslighted me, told me I was crazy, that I was misinterpreting things. They would have turned it around and somehow made it my fault. The classic, "You were never home. You were always working" defense. No. I've learned one thing from running a business for 15 years. When you strike once, and you make it count. You gather your intel, you form a strategy, and you execute it flawlessly. You don't go into a negotiation screaming. You go in with all the leverage. And I had all the leverage. The 2 weeks that followed that night were a masterclass in living a double life. On the surface, I was the same Carol, stressed from work, but a loving wife and mother. Underneath, I was an architect of ruin, working with a focus I hadn't felt since the early days of my company. My first move was to find a lawyer. I didn't just find any lawyer. I spent 2 full days researching, vetting, and interviewing 3 of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in the state. The first one kept patting my hand, suggesting counseling. "Marriage is a marathon, Carol," he said, condescendingly. I walked out after 10 minutes. The second was a woman more interested in billable hours than my case. Then I met Catherine. She was in her 60s, with eyes that could cut glass and a reputation for eviscerating cheating spouses in court. I walked into her office, laid out the story, and showed her the photos on my phone. She didn't offer sympathy. She just smiled, a thin, sharp smile, and said, "Oh, this is good. This is very, very good." It turns out my state still has adultery laws that matter a great deal in divorce proceedings, especially when it comes to the division of assets. Those photos? Gold. The fact that my sister was my employee and that she and my husband had used company property, her company car, her company phone for their affair? Even better. Catherine called it a gift. It opened them up to potential civil claims from my business for misuse of company resources and breach of fiduciary duty. With Catherine guiding me, I began to meticulously dismantle the financial life we had built together. Quietly, methodically. In the dead of night, after Rob was asleep, my home office became my war room. First, I paid off all our joint credit cards down to a 0 balance. Every single one. Then I called each company and closed the accounts. The reason I gave? Financial consolidation. The next day, I went to my company's HR department and had my direct deposit rerouted to a new, individual bank account in my name only. That was a big move. The salary that funded their entire lifestyle was now firewalled away from them. I started moving money around. I couldn't just drain our joint savings without raising alarms. So I started making a series of legitimate loans to a shell corporation owned by a trusted friend from college. I drafted the paperwork myself. On paper, it was a sound business investment. In reality, it was me securing my capital before the demolition. I came home one evening and announced I was selling my boat and Rob's precious sports car. He was horrified. "But why, Carol?" "I love that car. We have so many great memories with the boat." I feigned anxiety, rubbing my temples. I even practiced looking distressed in the car on the way home. "Honey, I'm just so worried about the market. I think we need to be more financially responsible, cut down on our luxuries. We need to be saving more. It makes me feel more secure." To my surprise, he bought it. He even put his arm around me, the picture of a concerned husband. "Of course, babe. I didn't realize you were so stressed. Whatever makes you feel secure." Oh, I bet he was supportive. Less debt for him to worry about when he and Brenda thought they were going to ride off into the sunset with half of my company. I liquidated our entire joint investment portfolio. The market's about to tank, Rob, trust me. My gut is telling me to pull out now. He, who didn't know a stock from a bond, just nodded along. My husband thought I was having some kind of financial anxiety episode. He had no idea I was preparing for war. Next, the business. This was trickier. I couldn't just fire Brenda without tipping my hand. So I did something better. I promoted her. I gave her a fancy new title, Director of Client Operations. It came with a small salary bump, but a lot more responsibility. More importantly, it came with a new employment contract drafted by Catherine's office. Tucked away in the fine print were clauses that made her personally liable for major client losses or breaches of contract. I started giving her the most difficult, high-maintenance accounts. I also started documenting everything. Every missed deadline, every client complaint, every long lunch. There were many. And my home life? I kept playing the part. I was the perfect wife and mom. I initiated family dinners. I asked the kids about their homework. I listened to Rob talk for hours about his tennis matches. My son, Garrett, got a little suspicious once. He found me in the study late one night, just staring at a spreadsheet. "Mom, you seem different lately," he said, hovering in the doorway. "You're always working. Everything okay?" The faint concern in his voice made me want to scream. I forced a tired smile. "Just work stress, buddy. Big, new project. It's a lot of pressure. Nothing for you to worry about." He exchanged a look with his sister, Sylvia, who was in the hallway. They probably thought I was getting suspicious of them. Good. Let them sweat a little. The final piece of the puzzle was the house. Our beautiful, custom-built $800,000 house. It was fully paid off in both our names. This was my biggest vulnerability. I couldn't let them get half of it. So, I created an opportunity. I told Rob I'd run into an old acquaintance at a charity event, a real estate developer. He made an offer on the house, Rob. A cash offer. It's too good to refuse. We can downsize, invest the profits, think about our future. It's the smart move. He was hesitant at first. But Carol, this place has so many memories. Yeah, like the memory of you sleeping with my sister in my bed. You piece of trash, I thought. Out loud, I said, "Sometimes you have to let go of the past to move forward. A new chapter for us." It took a week of convincing, of showing him spreadsheets with inflated numbers about how much we could make, but he finally agreed. We had a real estate agent come over. I watched as Rob charmed her, walking her through the home I designed, pointing out the features I chose. I had to go into the bathroom and splash cold water on my face to keep from screaming. We signed the initial paperwork. The closing was in 30 days. He thought we were going to go house hunting next week. He even brought home brochures for gated communities in the next town over. We're not going. Brenda came by the day after we signed. She walked around the living room, touching the furniture. "Are you sure about selling, sis? This place is so special." "Yeah," I said, looking her right in the eye. "Sometimes you just need a fresh start." She actually had the nerve to pat me on the shoulder. "That's really brave, Carol." 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks of this charade. Then I was going to burn it all to the ground. And for everyone worried about the kids, they made their choice. They chose to lie to me every single day for over a year. They weren't toddlers. They were old enough to know right from wrong. They picked their side. Now, they were about to have to live with it. The final 6 weeks were a blur of meticulous planning and compartmentalization. I was living a double life, and I was getting damn good at it. During the day, I was the distressed but loving wife and CEO. At night, after everyone was asleep, I was on my laptop, methodically setting up my new existence. It felt like I was planning the most complex marketing campaign of my life, but the product was my own freedom. The setup was everything. I found a killer apartment in a city 2,000 miles away, a place with huge windows and a view of the water. I hired a remote interior designer and had it fully furnished before I ever even set foot in it. I spent hours online picking out everything, from the sofa to the silverware. It was the first time in years I'd made decisions for a home that were entirely my own, without having to consult anyone. It was a small thing, but it felt incredibly liberating. I leveraged my business contacts to line up a major commercial project in my new city, a consulting gig that would keep me busy and profitable for months. I opened new bank accounts, got a new phone plan with a new number, new credit cards, a whole new identity financially speaking. I even joined a gym out there online. I was building a life raft while they were all still partying on the Titanic. The house closing was scheduled for the week after my departure. Rob thought we were moving into a luxury rental temporarily while we searched for our dream home. He was so excited. He spent evenings looking at real estate websites, showing me mansions we could afford with the profits from the sale. I would nod and smile, making non-committal comments, while inside I was counting down the days. Packing was a strategic operation. All of my truly important stuff, my personal documents, my grandfather's watch, family photo albums, my father's old records, was packed and shipped out in boxes labeled office supplies and client files. I did it piece by piece over weeks. Sheer audacity was my cover. I would pack a box in my home office right in front of him, and he'd just see a busy woman preparing for a move. "Just getting a head start, babe," I'd say. "You know how I like to be organized." He didn't notice that the photo albums on the shelves had been replaced with identical-looking empty ones I'd bought at a craft store. He didn't notice that the expensive watch I wore every day was a convincing replica I'd bought online. The real one was already in a safe deposit box in my new city. The night I packed the real watch was hard. It was my father's. He gave it to me when I graduated college. Holding its weight in my hand, I felt a wave of grief for the family I thought I was protecting, the legacy I thought I was building. Then I thought of their betrayal, and the grief hardened into resolve. I wrapped it in bubble wrap and placed it in the box. I even bought a whole new set of my favorite professional tools and had them shipped to the new office space I was leasing. They were completely oblivious. The business restructuring was the trickiest part. I couldn't just dissolve my company without raising 1,000 red flags. So, as I mentioned, I did something better. I held a small office party to celebrate Brenda's new title as operations director. She beamed, soaking up the attention, making a little speech about how grateful she was for my mentorship and sisterly love. I nearly choked on my champagne. What she didn't know is that the contract she signed, the one Catherine's office had drafted, made her personally liable for any major screw-ups. I also started a quiet investigation into her expense reports and discovered she'd been using the company credit card for personal luxuries, spa days, expensive dinners with my husband, even a weekend trip. And her drinking, which had started as a glass of wine at lunch, had escalated. I had multiple reports from other employees of her smelling like alcohol on the job. It was all being documented. Then I approached Regina, my office manager. Regina had been with me for 15 years, since the very beginning. She was a single mom who had started as my part-time assistant. She was loyal, brilliant, and hardworking. I called her into my office one evening and closed the door. I told her I was making some major life changes and that I wanted to sell the company. I saw the panic in her eyes. Then I laid out my offer, a legitimate sale of 60% of the company's ownership to her, financed by the company itself. It would make her the majority owner and CEO. The sale would be finalized the week after I left. I would retain 40% as a silent partner, guaranteeing me a steady income stream without any involvement. She cried when I told her. She thought I was joking at first. "Regina," I said, "this company is my baby. I'm not giving it to just anyone. I'm giving it to the only other person who loves it as much as I do." She deserved it. And the kids? This is the part where people will probably hate me, but I honestly don't give a damn. They were getting exactly what they deserved. A dose of reality. My son Garrett's college fund, which was substantial, was in a trust account with only my name on it. I liquidated it. Every penny. He was going to find out the hard way when he tried to access it for his first tuition payment. My daughter Sylvia's 16th birthday was coming up, and I had been planning to buy her a brand new car. That wasn't happening. The credit cards I paid for, the ones they used for everything from fast food to new clothes, were scheduled to be cut off the day I left. They wanted to play adult games with adult betrayals. Welcome to adult prizes. The universe gave me one final clarifying moment just last week. I was watching a movie with Sylvia, just the two of us. It was a rare, quiet evening. Her phone buzzed on the couch next to her. She glanced at it, and I saw her face go completely white. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Yeah, just friend drama," she stammered. But I had seen the message preview. It was from Rob. It said, "Brenda just left. Coast is clear." Sylvia looked at me, her eyes wide, trying to gauge if I'd seen it. I just smiled, grabbed a handful of popcorn and said, "These teenage years, huh? So much drama." She gave a nervous little laugh and quickly typed something back. I saw her phone screen before she turned it away. Her reply was to my sister, Brenda. It said, "All clear. Mom's clueless." Clueless. That's what my little princess thought of me. That single word solidified every cold, hard decision I had made. There was one more person to consider in this whole mess. Brenda's husband, Walter. He's a sweet man, a genuinely good person, a high school history teacher who loves his job and adores my sister. He had no idea he was married to a cheating piece of garbage, just like I was. So I prepared a package for him, too. Everything, every photo, every message, every timestamp, a complete, undeniable record of the betrayal. He deserved to know what kind of woman he was married to. I arranged for a courier to deliver that package to his school the day after I left. So, here's the plan for tomorrow. I leave for a business trip in the morning, an early flight. I'll kiss my husband goodbye. I'll hug my kids. I'll shake my sister's hand when she comes by for our weekly meeting before I head to the airport. It will all be normal goodbyes for what they think is a normal trip. I even packed a small decoy carry-on bag with a few changes of clothes, which I'll leave in my car at the airport. Except I've already shipped my real luggage. I'm traveling with just a backpack. My new life starts with less baggage, literally. The folder will be on the kitchen table when Rob wakes up. Inside, the divorce papers, printed screenshots of the most damning messages, financial statements showing all the legal moves I've made, and a USB drive with every single photo and message I found. There won't be a long, emotional letter, no explanations, just a single sticky note on the front. It will say, "I know everything. Don't contact me. Communicate through my lawyer only." My old phone will be in the kitchen drawer, factory reset. My new number is already active, and only 3 people have it. My lawyer, Regina, and my new property manager. By the time they're reading that note, I'll be 30,000 feet in the air, flying towards my new life. Catherine will handle everything. The house sale will go through. They can't stop it now. The divorce will be straightforward with the mountain of evidence. Brenda will get her termination letter via certified mail, along with a notice that any attempt to contest it will result in me pursuing criminal charges for embezzlement, thanks to her creative use of the company credit card. And the kids? They'll figure it out when Rob can't pay for their lifestyle anymore, when their college funds are gone, when they realize their mother isn't the pathetic, clueless sucker they thought she was. Some of you will say I'm being too harsh, that they're just teenagers who are manipulated. I say bullshit. My son is months away from being a legal adult. My daughter made conscious choices every single day to lie to my face. They knew it was wrong. That's why they hid it. They chose their father. They chose their aunt. They chose deception. Now they get to live with those choices. In 36 hours, I'll be in my new apartment, in my new city, starting my new life. And they'll be standing in the middle of the shitstorm they created. I built my life from nothing once. I'll do it again, but this time, I'll do it without snakes in my house. The flight was surreal. For 7 hours, I was in limbo, suspended between 2 lives. I didn't watch a movie. I didn't read. I just stared out the window at the clouds. The first real silence I'd had in my own head in months. The morning had been a blur of forced smiles. The hug I gave Sylvia felt like holding a stranger. Garrett gave me a quick one-armed hug before burying his face in his phone. Rob kissed me at the door. "Have a good trip, babe. Call me when you land." I drove to the airport on autopilot, my town looking foreign in the rearview mirror. I left the car in long-term parking, dropped the decoy bag in the trunk, and walked into the terminal with nothing but my backpack and a one-way ticket to my future. I landed at noon. By 12:30, I was in a cab heading to my new apartment. My new phone, the one with the number only 3 people had, started buzzing. It was Catherine, my lawyer. "The package has been delivered," she said, her voice crisp and professional. "And the recipient is not pleased." She told me my old phone, the one I left behind, had been blowing up her office's answering service. By the time I checked into my new building, I had 47 missed calls from various numbers belonging to Rob, Brenda, and my parents. I didn't answer a single one. I stood in the middle of my new, beautifully furnished and completely empty apartment, listening to the city sounds outside my window, and I felt a profound sense of peace. The storm was breaking, and I was safe in the eye of it. The shit didn't just hit the fan, it hit every fan in a 10-mile radius. According to Catherine, who had a certain grim satisfaction in her voice as she recounted the events over the next few days, Rob found the folder around 7 a.m. when he went to make coffee. His first call was to her office, screaming, crying, demanding to know where I was. She gave him the practiced, ice-cold line. Miss Evans has retained me for the dissolution of her marriage. All communication will go through me. She will not be responding to any attempts at direct contact. Brenda showed up at the house by 8 a.m., probably summoned by a frantic call from Rob. Apparently, the fight that erupted between them was legendary. Catherine had a source, a nosy neighbor who was an old client of hers, who reported a massive screaming match on the front lawn. Accusations, recriminations, the whole ugly spectacle. The neighbor called the cops, reporting a domestic disturbance. Beautiful. The two lovebirds finally turning on each other when the money machine was gone. That afternoon, my son Garrett tried to access his college fund to put down a deposit for his dorm room at the state university he'd been so proud of getting into. Surprise, motherfucker. The account was empty. Catherine said he called her office, completely bewildered, asking if there had been some kind of bank error. She informed him there was no error. The funds, which were solely in my name, had been legally withdrawn by me. He apparently started crying on the phone with her paralegal. My daughter Sylvia got her dose of reality at the school cafeteria. She tried to buy lunch, and her debit card was declined. Welcome to the real world, princess. Her friends had to spot her the cash. The humiliation was just beginning. The immediate fallout was just the beginning. The package I sent to Walter, Brenda's husband, was delivered to the high school where he teaches. He opened it during his lunch break. He didn't just leave her. He went scorched earth. He posted everything, the messages, the photos, the whole sordid story, on his Facebook page. He wrote a long, heartbreaking post about betrayal, about trust, and about the two people who had destroyed his family. He tagged Rob. He tagged Brenda. He tagged our local community group. The whole town knew within hours. Rob and Brenda tried to do damage control. They posted some vague crap about going through a difficult time and asking for privacy. That went over about as well as you'd expect when everyone in your social circle has already seen screenshots of you and your sister-in-law in bed. The comment sections were a bloodbath. The work situation detonated the next morning. Brenda had the audacity to show up to work like nothing had happened. Regina, my loyal manager and now the new majority owner, was waiting for her. She had security escort my sister out of the building she used to walk into like she owned the place. Brenda screamed about wrongful termination. The company's lawyer, already prepped by Catherine, shut that down real quick with a file documenting her misuse of company property and her on-the-job drinking. The best part? She'd been bragging about her big promotion and her new executive salary to anyone who would listen. She'd even taken out a loan for a new luxury car based on that salary. Now she was unemployed, about to be divorced, and drowning in debt. You just love to see it. The weeks that followed the detonation were a strange mix of legal maneuvers and personal rebuilding. While they were living through the public humiliation and financial chaos I had engineered, I was quietly putting my life back together 2,000 miles away. I spent the first week just being. I explored my new neighborhood, found a little coffee shop where the barista knew my order by the third day, and took long walks by the water. I was decompressing from 2 years of holding my breath. The divorce was, in Catherine's words, the cleanest, quickest train wreck I've ever seen. Rob's lawyer, a slick guy in an expensive suit, tried to fight, of course. They tried to claim I'd abandoned the family, that Rob deserved half of everything, plus significant alimony for his years as a stay-at-home dad. Catherine literally laughed on the phone with them. Then she sent over the full evidence file, the affair, the conspiracy, the kids' involvement, Brenda's misuse of company funds. It was overwhelming. Catherine told me they had a settlement meeting where Rob's lawyer looked at the evidence for 10 minutes, went pale, and asked for a recess. He came back and advised Rob to take whatever was offered. They tried one last desperate Hail Mary. They claimed emotional abuse that my high-pressure career had driven him into my sister's arms. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who looked like she'd seen it all, took one look at the evidence file and almost held Rob in contempt of court. "You're claiming emotional abuse, Mr. Evans," she'd said, according to Catherine's gleeful retelling, while you were documenting your affair in your wife's office, using her money to do it? Get out of my courtroom with that nonsense. The final settlement was brutal for him. He got exactly what the law required and not a penny more. From the sale of the house, after everything was settled, he walked away with about $200,000. That might sound like a lot, but for a man with no job skills, no recent work history, and a reputation that was now radioactive in our town, that money wouldn't last 2 years, especially with the way he was used to living. There were no custody issues to fight over since Garrett was about to turn 18 and Sylvia was old enough to make her own choices, though the court noted the children's complicity in the matter. I kept the business. I kept my investments. I kept my retirement accounts. I kept my life. The extended family drama was a whole other level of rich. My parents initially tried to stay neutral. There are two sides to every story, Carol, my mom said on one tearful phone call. That neutrality vanished the moment Catherine, at my instruction, sent them a condensed version of the evidence file. My dad called me after that. He wasn't calling to check on me. He was calling to apologize. To apologize for raising a daughter like Brenda. A piece of trash, in his words. He told me he was consulting his own lawyer about the family inheritance to ensure Brenda would never see another dime. It was a cold, hard move, but I understood it. Betrayal of that magnitude changes everything. Rob's family, on the other hand, tried to come at me on social media. His mother posted a long rant about what a heartless monster I was, abandoning my family. I had Catherine send a cease and desist letter with a few choice photographic attachments. I got a furious, misspelled email from my now ex-mother-in-law, which I read, laughed at, and then forwarded to Catherine with a note. File this under fan mail. They shut up real quick when they saw their son and their daughter-in-law's sister in poses that were anything but family-friendly. And what about my life? I was thriving. The new consulting venture was exceeding all my projections. I already had 3 major projects lined up for the next year. I joined that gym I'd signed up for online and started working with a personal trainer. I was hitting it hard. I was down 20 pounds of fat and up 10 pounds of muscle. The anger was a powerful motivator.
Dating? Not yet.
I wasn't ready, but I'd had offers. Turns out a successful, fit, single woman in her late 30s is in demand. Who knew? I bought myself a new car, a sleek convertible I'd always wanted, but Rob had said was impractical. I paid cash. I also started seeing a therapist, not because I was sad or guilty. I wasn't. But because I wanted to make sure I understood how I had let this happen. I wanted to make sure I would never, ever miss the red flags again. She helped me realize I hadn't just been betrayed by my family. For years, I had betrayed myself by ignoring my own instincts. The last I heard, through the grapevine of old friends, Rob was living in a 2-bedroom apartment, working a retail job at a big box store. Brenda was crashing with friends, unable to find work, because our industry is small and everyone knows what she did. Walter, her ex-husband, took their kids and moved back to his hometown in another state. They were doing well. The kids. This is the hardest part to talk about. This is where the anger gets mixed with something that feels a lot like grief. A funeral for the children I thought I had. It wasn't a clean, simple anger. It was messy and complicated, and it kept me up at night. My son Garrett had to scramble for student loans. His dream of going to the big state university was gone. Turns out when dad's not there to pay for everything, that full ride to community college starts to look pretty good. He had to get 2 part-time jobs to cover his expenses, one at a coffee shop and another stocking shelves at a grocery store overnight. My daughter Sylvia had to get a job babysitting for neighbors. Imagine that. A 15-year-old learning what work actually means. They tried everything to contact me. They created new social media accounts. They sent emails from new addresses. They even had their friends try to reach out.
Blocked. Blocked. Blocked.
One night, I saw an incoming call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Sylvia. "Mom, please," she sobbed into the phone. "Please just call me back.
I'm so sorry.
I miss you." I listened to the message 3 times, my hand hovering over the callback button. Then I remembered her text message. All clear. Mom's clueless. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. Catherine did forward me one letter that Garrett wrote. It was a long, rambling sob story about how sorry he was. How he was just a kid who got caught in the middle. How Rob had manipulated him. How he never meant to hurt me. Caught in the middle. I read that line, and I felt a hot flash of rage crawl up my neck. I just stared at the wall, the letter feeling heavy in my hand. I dissected his words for my audience, pointing out the passive language. He was caught, not I made a choice. He was manipulated, not I chose to believe the lies because it was easier. You weren't caught in anything, you little shit. You actively deleted security footage. You were an accomplice. A few months later, on her 16th birthday, I got a letter from Sylvia. It was 2 pages of apologies, regrets, and promises to make things right. She included a photo of us from when she was little, a picture of me holding her on her shoulders at the beach. A nice try. But emotional manipulation doesn't work when you've already checked out. It was a performance of remorse, not the real thing. I understand if you never forgive me, Garrett had written. But you're punishing Dad and Sylvia for my mistakes. No, Junior. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just not subsidizing your lives anymore. There's a big difference. Maybe one day, when they're adults, when they've had their own hearts broken, when they have families of their own, maybe then they'll understand the depth of their betrayal. Or maybe not. Either way, I'll be living my life on my terms. I had to let them go. I had to, for my own sanity. It was like amputating a limb to save the rest of the body. It hurt like hell, but it was necessary for survival. Life moves on. That's what they tell you, right? But for a long time, it felt like I was just going through the motions. Wake up, go to the gym, work, eat, sleep, repeat. I was functional, successful even. But there was a hollowness inside me. I had built walls around my heart so high and so thick. I wasn't sure if anything could ever get through again. I went on a few dates with nice, normal men, but I felt nothing. I was polite but distant. I couldn't let my guard down. Then something unexpected happened. Walter, Brenda's ex-husband, reached out. It started with an email. He just wanted to thank me for telling him the truth. He said it was the hardest thing he'd ever gone through, but knowing was better than living a lie. That one email turned into 2, then into long text conversations. We were 2 survivors of the same shipwreck, comparing notes. We talked about our exes, about the betrayal. But we also started talking about other things, about his love for history, about my passion for building brands, about our kids, about feeling lost in your late 30s. He told me something during one of those late-night calls that chilled me to the bone. He said that in the mess of their divorce, Brenda had admitted everything. She and Rob had been planning it for years. They weren't just waiting for my company to grow. They were waiting for my parents to pass away. My father had a heart condition, and they knew I was the main beneficiary of their will. They were waiting to get their hands on my inheritance, too. And the kids? The kids knew about that part of the plan as well. That little tidbit erased any lingering shred of doubt I had about my decisions. This wasn't a mistake. This was a conspiracy. After a few months of talking, Walter mentioned he was thinking of making a change. His school district was a mess, and he wanted a fresh start for him and his kids. My new city, he noted, had one of the best public school systems in the country. Was it messy? Maybe. Did I care?
No.
He moved here last month. We've been taking it slow. We met for coffee. It was awkward at first, 2 people connected by an ugly trauma. But then we started talking and it was easy. He was kind and funny and decent. It's nice to be with someone who has integrity, someone who understands. We're just friends for now, but it's a foundation. I bought a house. Nothing fancy like my old one, but it's mine. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a pool, and a dedicated home office where I can work without someone nagging me about the noise. I even started teaching a small business class part-time at the local community college. It feels good to give back, to help young, ambitious people avoid some of the mistakes I made. I'm in the best shape of my life. I started boxing. There's something incredibly therapeutic about hitting a heavy bag when you imagine certain faces on it. I've made some solid friends at the gym, guys and gals who value honesty and hard work. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago. Cleanest divorce Catherine said she'd ever seen.
Why?
Because the evidence was so overwhelming. There was nothing left to fight about. People ask if I regret it, if I regret going nuclear, if I should have tried counseling, tried to forgive, tried to keep the family together for the kids. Here's my answer. Hell no. They didn't just cheat. They conspired. They plotted. They made me a fool in my own home, on my own dime. My children, the two people I would have died for, looked me in the eye every single day, and they lied. They helped their father betray me. They knew how hard I worked for them, for our life, and they spit on it. Some people might forgive that. Some might say, keep the family together no matter what. Those people are better than me. Or maybe they're weaker. It depends on your perspective. I chose myself. For the first time in 19 years, I chose myself, and I am not sorry. 2 weeks ago, out of the blue, my new phone rang. It was an old number I'd forgotten I'd given to our family dentist's office years ago. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. It was Rob. I don't know how he got the number. His voice was different. Thinner, beaten. "Carol, please," he said. "Just 5 minutes. I need to tell you something." I almost hung up, but I listened. I wanted to hear it. "You destroyed everything," he said, his voice cracking. "The kids hate me. I can't find a decent job. Your sister won't even talk to me anymore. I lost everything." I waited a beat. My own voice, when it came out, was calm and steady. "No, Rob, you didn't lose everything. You threw it all away. I just stopped picking up after you. I loved you," he said, and it sounded pathetic. I really did. I got confused. For 2 years, I asked. The silence on the other end of the line was my answer. I could hear him breathing, a shaky, shallow sound. Finally, he asked the question I knew was coming. "Are you happy? Was destroying our family worth it?" And that's when it all became crystal clear. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt pity. "I didn't destroy our family, Rob," I said, and every word felt true. "You did that when you slept with my sister." I just documented it. I hung up. Then I blocked that number, too. And for good measure, I found a new dentist the next day. So, that's my story. I'm 39 now. Starting over wasn't easy. But God, it was worth it. I could have been the bigger person. I could have forgiven. I could have pretended the betrayal didn't cut me as deep as it did.
But why?
To save a family that conspired against me? To teach my kids that betrayal has no consequences? To show my husband that he could sleep with my sister and still live in my house and spend my money? No, thank you. I chose scorched earth. I chose consequences. I chose to show everyone involved that I am not the weak, oblivious provider they thought I was. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. To any woman out there going through something similar, you do not owe anyone forgiveness. You don't owe them a second chance. You don't owe them access to the life you built. If they betray you, burn it down and build something better on the ashes. And to my ex-family, if you're somehow listening to this, you thought you knew me. You thought I'd never find out. You were wrong. Enjoy the bed you made. I'll be in mine, in my new house, in my new city, living my best life without you. What do you think? Would you have done the same, or taken a different path? I'd really love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.